In the rolling hills of Delaware's Brandywine Valley, where morning mist clings to carefully manicured gardens and stone walls older than the American Republic still stand sentinel, there exists a monument to industrial wealth, ambition, and the inexorable passage of time. The Nemours Estate, constructed between 1910 and 1910, stands as perhaps the most extraordinary testament to the DuPont family's transformation from French immigrants to American industrial titans, and its history carries within it threads of triumph, isolation, tragedy, and ultimately, preservation against the erosion of relevance that claimed so many Gilded Age palaces. Before we journey deeper into this remarkable true story, welcome to the Dark Estate, where we explore the real, documented histories of America's most fascinating mansions. If you appreciate thoroughly researched, factual historical content, please subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and support our work so we can continue bringing you these meticulously verified stories from the shadows of history. The man who conceived this palatial estate was Alfred I du Pont, born on May 13, 1864, into one of America's most powerful industrial dynasties. The DuPont family had established their gunpowder mills along the Brandywine Creek in 1802, after Alfred I du Pont fled revolutionary France and recognized the inadequacy of American gunpowder production. By the time Alfred came of age, the family business had grown into an industrial colossus, supplying 40% of all gunpowder used during the American Civil War and dominating the explosives industry with near-monopolistic power. Alfred's childhood unfolded in the shadow of industrial machinery and family expectation. He was the great-grandson of the company's founder, raised along the Brandywine amid the constant thunder of powder mills and the ever-present danger of catastrophic explosion. His mother, Charlotte Shepherd Henderson DuPont, died when Alfred was merely 13 years old, a loss that would shape his emotional landscape for decades to come. His father, Alfred I du Pont II, vice president of the DuPont Company, provided material comfort but little emotional warmth, adhering to the reserved Victorian masculinity of the era. Young Alfred demonstrated mechanical aptitude and genuine interest in the family business, unlike some of his more artistically or academically inclined relatives. He began working in the powder yards as a young man, learning the dangerous craft of explosives manufacturing from the ground level. On September 7, 1890, tragedy struck the Brandywine mills when a massive explosion killed several workers. Alfred, present during the disaster, helped rescue survivors and recover bodies, an experience that left psychological scars and heightened his awareness of industrial danger. This was not abstract theoretical risk but visceral reality. The black powder business built DuPont wealth upon a foundation of potential annihilation. In 1887, at age 23, Alfred married Bessie Gardner, a distant cousin, following the DuPont family's strong tradition of intermarriage designed to keep wealth concentrated within the bloodline. The marriage produced 4 children: Bessie, Alfred Victor, Victorine, and Eleuthère, but the union grew increasingly strained. Alfred's growing deafness, caused by years of exposure to explosions in the powder yards, created communication difficulties and social isolation. By the early 1900s, the marriage existed in name only, a cold arrangement maintained for appearances in an era when divorce carried devastating social stigma, particularly within conservative, elite circles like the DuPont family. The year 1902 brought seismic changes to both the DuPont Company and Alfred's personal trajectory. When company president Eugene DuPont died, the elder generation prepared to sell the business to external interests. Alfred, then 38, joined with his cousins Thomas Coleman DuPont and Pierre Samuel DuPont in a bold maneuver, purchasing the company from their elders for what proved to be a vastly undervalued sum. The 3 cousins restructured the enterprise, modernized operations, and consolidated smaller competitors, transforming DuPont into a corporate giant that controlled nearly 70% of American explosives production by 1907. However, this business triumph coincided with personal upheaval. Alfred had fallen deeply in love with Alicia Bradford, the wife of George Amory Maddox, a fellow DuPont executive. The affair scandalized Wilmington society and fractured the DuPont family, which valued propriety and discretion above nearly all else. When Alfred sought divorce from Bessie in 1906, the family essentially excommunicated him from their social circle. His cousin Pierre, now the dominant figure in company leadership, grew increasingly hostile. Family members were instructed not to socialize with Alfred, creating an atmosphere of bitter division that would persist for decades. Alfred married Alicia on October 15, 1907, mere days after his divorce was finalized. The union represented both genuine affection and absolute social exile from the only world Alfred had ever known. He was removed from the DuPont Company's executive committee in 1909, retaining only his stock ownership with no operational control. Pierre DuPont orchestrated this marginalization methodically, consolidating power around a faction that excluded Alfred entirely. For a man whose identity had been inseparable from the family business since childhood, this rejection cut profoundly. It was in this context of personal turmoil, social ostracism, and thwarted ambition that Alfred conceived his greatest architectural statement. In 1909, he purchased nearly 300 acres of rolling farmland along the Rockland Road, several miles from the ancestral Brandywine properties, where the family's powder mills still operated. Here, sufficiently distant from his disapproving relatives, yet close enough to assert his presence and significance, he would construct a residence of such magnificence that it would demand recognition and respect, regardless of family politics. Alfred engaged the New York architectural firm of Carrere and Hastings, designers of the New York Public Library and among the most prestigious practitioners of Beaux-Arts architecture in America. John Mervyn Carrere and Thomas Hastings had studied at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris and brought rigorous French classical training to their work. Alfred instructed them to design a house modeled after the Château de Longpré in France, creating a 300-room mansion that would rival the grandest estates of European aristocracy. The name Alfred selected for his estate carried pointed significance. Nemours, after the French town of Nemours where the DuPont family had lived before immigrating to America. By invoking the family's French origins, Alfred was simultaneously asserting his legitimate place in DuPont lineage while creating something entirely his own, beyond the control or approval of Pierre and the family faction that had excluded him. The estate would be a declaration rendered in limestone and marble, a permanent monument to Alfred's wealth, taste, and rightful position in the family hierarchy, regardless of Pierre's machinations. Construction began in 1909 and continued through 1910, employing hundreds of craftsmen and laborers. The mansion itself measured 77 feet wide and 115 feet deep, constructed of Indiana limestone with a gray slate roof. The architectural style was Louis XVI French neoclassical, featuring a symmetrical facade, tall windows, classical pilasters, and a restrained elegance that contrasted sharply with the more exuberant Gilded Age mansions being built elsewhere in America. Where Vanderbilt estates embraced ornate French Renaissance or Italian villa styles, Nemours pursued refined classical restraint, reflecting both Alfred's personal taste and the Beaux-Arts principles of harmonious proportion. The interior matched this exterior grandeur with meticulous European craftsmanship. The main hall featured pink Tennessee marble floors and walls, with a grand staircase rising beneath a crystal chandelier. The drawing room displayed 18th-century French boiserie panels installed by craftsmen who understood the precise techniques of period installation. The dining room could seat dozens beneath elaborately carved woodwork and French tapestries. Alfred spared no expense on details. Marble was imported from Tennessee, Vermont, and Europe. Hardware was custom forged. Light fixtures were designed specifically for each space, and decorative elements ranged from Louis XV furniture to Ming Dynasty porcelains. Beyond the mansion itself, Alfred created elaborate formal gardens that extended northward from the house in a long vista, modeled after French Baroque garden design. The gardens stretched nearly 1/3 of a mile along a central axis, featuring marble colonnade, sunken gardens, reflecting pools, bronze statues, and carefully orchestrated sightlines. At the far end, Alfred constructed a large reflecting pool flanked by classical statuary and terminating in a white marble temple. The garden design followed principles established by André Le Nôtre at Versailles, emphasizing geometric precision, axial symmetry, and the imposition of human order upon natural landscape. Water features throughout the gardens required extensive engineering. An artificial lake was created, fed by underground springs and equipped with sophisticated pumping systems to maintain water circulation and quality. Fountains were designed to operate on precise schedules, their jets timed for maximum aesthetic effect. The entire estate was serviced by its own powerhouse, which generated electricity for the mansion and pumped water for the gardens, ensuring complete independence from municipal utilities. Alfred also constructed extensive auxiliary buildings across the estate. A garage housed his collection of automobiles, representing his enthusiasm for the emerging technology of motorized transportation. Staff housing, designed in complementary architectural style, provided residence for the dozens of servants, gardeners, chauffeurs, and maintenance personnel required to operate such an establishment. A working farm occupied portions of the property, supplying fresh produce, dairy, and poultry. The estate functioned as a largely self-sufficient compound, a private world where Alfred could exercise complete control and maintain standards of grandeur without interference. The total cost of Nemours' construction exceeded $2 million, an astronomical sum representing perhaps $75 million in current purchasing power. This expenditure occurred during an era when the average American worker earned approximately $500 annually, making the cost equivalent to 4,000 years of average wages. Alfred's wealth, derived from his substantial DuPont company stock holdings, made such spending possible without threatening his financial security. The explosives business remained extraordinarily profitable, and Alfred's ownership stake generated income that far exceeded his lavish spending. Alfred, Alicia, and Alicia's daughter from her previous marriage, Alicia Maddox, moved into Nemours in 1910. For Alfred, the estate represented both triumph and fortress, a palatial retreat from the family that had rejected him, and a constant assertion of his significance. He could entertain on a scale that rivaled any DuPont residence, host gatherings of political and business figures, and maintain a lifestyle befitting his wealth and social position, all without requiring the approval or participation of Pierre and the hostile family faction. However, Nemours could not shield Alfred from continued business conflict with his cousin Pierre. Beginning in 1915, Alfred initiated legal action challenging Pierre's management of the DuPont company, alleging financial manipulation and mismanagement designed to benefit Pierre's faction at the expense of other shareholders, including Alfred. The litigation continued for years, creating bitter antagonism and consuming enormous amounts of Alfred's time, energy, and financial resources. Depositions, hearings, and trials became fixtures of Alfred's life, a grinding legal war that achieved some financial recovery, but no reconciliation. The First World War brought enormous profits to the DuPont company as European nations purchased vast quantities of explosives for the unprecedented artillery barrages that characterized Western Front combat. DuPont's stock values soared, and Alfred's wealth increased dramatically despite his exclusion from company management. The war that was destroying European civilization was simultaneously enriching the American explosives industry to levels previously unimaginable. Alfred, like his cousins, benefited enormously from mechanized slaughter occurring thousands of miles away. In 1920, tragedy struck Alfred's personal life when Alicia died of a heart attack at age 48. Alfred, now 56 and increasingly deaf, found himself alone in the immense mansion they had created together. The estate, designed for lavish entertaining and family life, became a monument to absence. Alfred's deafness, now nearly total despite various hearing devices, further isolated him from easy social interaction. The rooms of Nemours echoed with silence, and the elaborate gardens displayed their geometric perfection to diminishing audiences. Alfred's response to grief followed a pattern familiar among widowed wealthy men of his generation. He sought companionship and relatively quickly remarried. In 1921, he married Jessie DuPont, a considerably younger woman from Virginia who had been working as a music teacher. Jessie was 35, Alfred was 57. The marriage raised eyebrows among those remaining DuPont family members who paid attention to Alfred's life, but he no longer sought family approval. Jessie brought vitality to Nemours, hosting gatherings and encouraging Alfred to remain socially engaged despite his hearing difficulties. The 1920s found Alfred increasingly focused on Florida real estate development. He had begun purchasing land around Jacksonville, Florida, envisioning large-scale development that would transform the region. With Jessie's support and input, Alfred invested millions in Florida properties, constructing roads, establishing towns, building hotels, and creating infrastructure for what he imagined would become a major population center. The Florida land boom of the mid-1920s seemed to validate his vision, as property values soared and investors rushed southward, seeking quick profits. However, the catastrophic hurricane that struck South Florida in September 1926, followed by another devastating storm in 1928, effectively ended the Florida boom. Property values collapsed, development stalled, and Alfred's Florida investments, while not financially ruinous due to his vast DuPont wealth, proved far less profitable than anticipated. He continued maintaining Florida properties and interests, but on a much reduced scale, his grandiose development dreams curtailed by natural disaster and economic reality. Throughout the 1920s and early 1930s, Nemours remained Alfred's primary residence, though he spent increasing amounts of time in Florida. The estate required constant maintenance, a permanent staff of dozens, and ongoing financial investment to preserve its elaborate gardens and mechanical systems. The gardens particularly demanded specialized labor, as the formal French Baroque design required precise pruning, seasonal replanting, fountain maintenance, and perpetual attention to geometric perfection. Alfred employed a full-time landscape crew working year-round to maintain standards. The onset of the Great Depression in 1929 affected American society catastrophically, but Alfred's DuPont dividends continued flowing, somewhat reduced but still substantial. The DuPont company had diversified beyond explosives into chemicals, paints, and other products, providing some economic stability, even as unemployment reached 25% nationally. Alfred, insulated by wealth from the deprivation affecting millions of Americans, continued maintaining Nemours in full operational splendor throughout the Depression decade. Alfred's final years saw some reconciliation with certain DuPont family members, though never with Pierre, whose management Alfred continued resenting until death. Age and infirmity mellowed some antagonisms, and Alfred occasionally received visits from relatives willing to look past old conflicts. His deafness now required all communication to occur through written notes, creating laborious exchanges that limited casual interaction. Jessie served as intermediary and companion, managing household affairs and helping Alfred maintain connections to a world he could no longer hear. On April 29, 1935, Alfred I du Pont died at age 70 in Jacksonville, Florida, where he had been wintering. His body was returned to Delaware for burial in the DuPont family cemetery, a final return to the Brandywine he had never truly left despite decades of family conflict. His will revealed careful planning for Nemours' future, establishing the Nemours Foundation as primary beneficiary of his estate, with instructions that the foundation uses wealth for charitable purposes benefiting Delaware children. The Nemours Foundation, established per Alfred's will, received the bulk of his fortune, estimated at approximately $40 million, representing perhaps $800 million in current value. Alfred's will specified that Nemours Estate itself should be maintained as a memorial to him for 20 years following Jessie's death, after which the foundation could determine its ultimate disposition. This arrangement ensured Nemours would not be immediately sold or demolished, but would have time to demonstrate potential value as historical property. Jessie DuPont, now widowed and enormously wealthy through Alfred's will provisions, continued residing at Nemours periodically, while also maintaining properties in Florida. She became a significant philanthropist in her own right, focusing particularly on education in Virginia, her home state. The Jessie DuPont Fund, established in 1950, continues operating today, distributing millions annually to educational and charitable institutions. Jessie exercised control over Alfred's charitable trusts and foundations for decades, shaping their missions and expenditures according to her interpretation of Alfred's intent combined with her own priorities. During Jessie's lifetime, which extended until 1970, Nemours remained largely closed to the public, a private memorial occupied occasionally by Jessie and maintained by a skeleton staff. The gardens fell into some disrepair as the intensive labor required to maintain French Baroque precision proved difficult to justify for a residence rarely occupied. Some fountains ceased operation, plantings grew beyond their intended geometric constraints, and the estate acquired the melancholic atmosphere of faded grandeur, a palace awaiting purpose. Following Jessie's death on September 26, 1970, at age 84, the 20-year memorial period specified in Alfred's will commenced. The Nemours Foundation, governed by trustees and focused primarily on operating the Alfred I. DuPont Hospital for Children in Wilmington, Delaware, faced decisions about the estate's future. The mansion and gardens required enormous ongoing maintenance expenditures. The house itself had grown outdated in mechanical systems and practical function, and the question of purpose loomed. What should be done with a 300-room mansion built for family life that no family would inhabit? During the 1970s and early 1980s, various proposals circulated regarding Nemours' fate. Some trustees favored selling the property for residential or commercial development, converting Alfred's wealth into liquid assets that could fund expanded hospital operations. Others recognized potential historical and cultural value, arguing that Nemours represented an important example of American Beaux-Arts architecture and Gilded Age estate design that merited preservation. Delaware Historical Preservation advocates lobbied for maintaining the estate as a museum, drawing comparisons to nearby Winterthur, another DuPont family mansion successfully operating as a museum and decorative arts collection. The 1980s saw a growing national interest in preserving Gilded Age estates as historical resources. Many contemporaneous mansions had been demolished in preceding decades, victims of changing economic conditions, property taxes, maintenance costs, and shifting cultural values that no longer celebrated ostentatious private wealth. Vanderbilt properties, Astor Estates, and numerous other Gilded Age palaces had fallen to wrecking balls or catastrophic fires. Those that survived often did so through conversion to institutional use, museums, or public spaces. The National Trust for Historic Preservation and similar organizations increasingly emphasized the cultural value of preserving exemplary architecture and designed landscapes, even when associated with problematic histories of wealth inequality and labor exploitation. In 1995, the Nemours Foundation decided to preserve the estate and open it to public tours, recognizing both historical value and potential for generating positive public relations for the Foundation's charitable medical work. This decision required substantial investment in restoration, as decades of minimal maintenance had allowed deterioration of building systems, decorative elements, and landscapes. Restoration work began in the mid-1990s, employing preservation specialists, landscape historians, and skilled craftspeople to return Nemours to its early 20th century appearance. Garden restoration proved particularly complex and expensive. Formal French Baroque gardens require constant intensive maintenance to preserve their geometric precision, and decades of reduced care had allowed significant degradation. Boxwood hedges had overgrown, fountains needed mechanical restoration, marble elements required cleaning and repair, and the overall spatial organization had been compromised by inappropriate plantings and deferred maintenance. Landscape architects studied historical photographs, original design drawings from the Carrere and Hastings archive, and physical evidence on site to guide accurate restoration. The reflecting pool was drained, cleaned, and re-engineered with modern systems disguised to maintain historical appearance. Fountain mechanisms were rebuilt using contemporary materials that mimicked original bronze and stone, while offering improved durability. Interior restoration addressed both preservation needs and practical requirements for public access. Original decorative elements, furniture, and artwork were conserved, using specialized techniques appropriate to various materials and periods. Modern climate control, security, and life safety systems were installed with minimal visual impact, concealing contemporary technology within historical fabric. Electrical, plumbing, and mechanical systems were updated to meet current code requirements while preserving historical appearance. The mansion received modern fire suppression, elevator access for disabled visitors, security monitoring, and environmental controls to protect collections, all implemented through careful design that respected historical integrity. The Nemours Estate opened for public tours in May 1997, offering guided visits through selected rooms and gardens. Initial public response proved positive, attracting history enthusiasts, architecture students, garden designers, and tourists interested in Gilded Age estates. The Nemours Foundation marketed the estate as part of Delaware's Chateau Country, referencing the remarkable concentration of DuPont family estates along the Brandywine Valley, including Winterthur, Hagley, and Longwood Gardens. This regional identity leveraged the DuPont name recognition and the inherent interest in American industrial dynasties to attract visitors. However, operating a 300-room mansion as a public museum presented significant ongoing challenges. Annual operating costs including staff salaries, utilities, maintenance, insurance, and conservation programs reached into millions of dollars. Admission revenue, even with successful attendance, covered only a fraction of operating expenses, requiring ongoing subsidy from the Nemours Foundation's endowment. This financial reality is typical of historic house museums, few of which achieve operational self-sufficiency. The Foundation's trustees had to balance the estate's cultural and historical value against competing charitable priorities, particularly the hospital's mission serving children's medical needs. In 2008, the Nemours Foundation announced a significant expansion of the estate's public mission, including construction of a new visitor center, expansion of tour offerings, and development of educational programming. This investment, totaling approximately $15 million, demonstrated renewed commitment to the estate as a cultural resource. The new visitor center opened in 2008, providing improved orientation space, museum shop, and support facilities that enhanced visitor experience while removing these functions from the historic mansion. The visitor center architecture consciously employed contemporary design vocabulary while respecting the estate's historical character through careful siting, material selection, and landscape integration. This approach reflected contemporary preservation philosophy, which encourages distinguishing new construction from historic fabric through honest contemporary design rather than false historicism. The building received positive architectural reviews for successfully balancing functional requirements with contextual sensitivity. Educational programming expanded to include school group tours, summer camps, special events, and thematic programming exploring various aspects of estate history, Gilded Age culture, garden design, and decorative arts. These programs aim to broaden the estate's audience beyond casual tourists to include students, scholars, and community members seeking deeper engagement with historical content. Programs examining the labor required to operate such estates proved particularly popular, addressing questions about servant life, social hierarchy, and the human cost of maintaining Gilded Age luxury. The estate also developed programming examining the DuPont company's complex legacy, including its role in American industrial development, explosives manufacturing, and environmental impact. These programs attempted to provide nuanced historical context acknowledging both the company's economic significance and its problematic aspects, including monopolistic practices, environmental degradation along the Brandywine, and profit from military explosives. Such programming reflected broader museum field trends toward presenting more complex, inclusive, and critical historical narratives rather than celebratory hagiography. In 2015, the Nemours Estate underwent additional conservation work addressing structural issues, envelope failures, and deterioration of decorative elements. Limestone exterior surfaces required cleaning and selective repair, addressing a century of weathering and environmental soiling. Roofing slate needed replacement in sections where original material had failed. Interior plaster conservation addressed cracking and delamination in several significant spaces. These projects, totaling several $1 million, represented ongoing preservation requirements inherent to operating century-old buildings constructed with traditional materials and methods. Garden maintenance remained perpetually demanding and expensive. The formal French Baroque design requires year-round labor, winter pruning, spring planting, summer maintenance, fall cleanup, and constant attention to irrigation, pest management, and horticultural health. The estate employed a full-time grounds crew supplemented by seasonal workers during peak periods. Even with dedicated professional staff, maintaining geometric precision across multiple garden rooms, alleys, parterres, and landscape features proved challenging. Some elements were simplified or modified to reduce labor requirements while attempting to preserve overall design character and historical appearance. Water features particularly demanded attention and resources. The fountains, pools, and water cascade require constant mechanical maintenance, water chemistry management, and seasonal winterization to prevent freeze damage. Modern pumping systems, while more reliable than original equipment, still need regular service, and the aesthetic requirements of period appearance limit use of certain contemporary materials and methods. The reflecting pool's size and prominence make it especially important to maintain pristine condition, requiring regular cleaning, algae control, and mechanical system upkeep. Throughout the 2010s, the Nemours Estate continued operating as a public museum, adjusting programming and operations in response to changing visitor expectations, economic conditions, and evolving understanding of historical interpretation. Annual attendance fluctuated between 15,000 and 25,000 visitors, respectable for a specialized historic house museum but modest compared to major cultural institutions. This attendance level generated admission revenue insufficient to cover operating costs, requiring ongoing foundation subsidy, a situation that periodically prompted trustee discussions about the estate's future. In 2017, the Nemours Foundation announced a strategic review of all properties and programs, examining how various assets and initiatives aligned with the Foundation's core mission of improving children's health. The estate, while culturally valuable and historically significant, had tangential relationship to pediatric healthcare, raising questions about whether Foundation resources might be better deployed directly toward medical programs. This announcement created concern among preservation advocates and museum professionals, who feared the estate might be sold or deaccessioned. Following the strategic review, The foundation reaffirmed commitment to maintaining the estate while seeking operational efficiencies and exploring partnership opportunities. Discussions occurred with various preservation organizations about potential collaborative management arrangements that might reduce foundation expenses, while ensuring continued public access and appropriate stewardship. These conversations reflected broader national trends in the historic house museum field, where many institutions struggle with financial sustainability and seek creative partnership models. In 2020, the global COVID-19 pandemic forced temporary closure of the Nemours Estate along with cultural institutions worldwide. The closure eliminated admission revenue, while most operating costs continued, exacerbating the ongoing financial challenges of museum operation. When the estate reopened in 2020, one with reduced capacity and modified tour protocols, attendance recovered slowly as visitor behavior adjusted to pandemic conditions and lingering health concerns. The pandemic period prompted accelerated development of digital programming, including virtual tours, online lectures, and social media content. These initiatives expanded the estate's reach beyond visitors who could physically travel to Delaware, potentially building broader awareness and support. However, digital programming generated minimal revenue while requiring staff time and technical resources, representing another mission-driven activity requiring subsidy rather than contributing to financial sustainability. As of the most recent available information from 2024, the Nemours Estate continues operating as a historic house museum open for guided tours seasonally, typically from May through December. The mansion tour includes approximately 12 rooms on the first and second floors, showcasing French and English decorative arts, period furnishings, and architectural details. Garden tours allow visitors to explore the formal landscape, including the colonnade, reflecting pool, sunken gardens, and various garden rooms. Special events throughout the year include garden parties, holiday decorations, educational programs, and thematic tours. The estate is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, receiving federal recognition of its historical significance. This designation provides some protection against inappropriate alteration and makes certain tax incentives available for preservation work, though it does not guarantee preservation or provide operational funding. The listing recognizes Nemours as an exceptional example of early 20th century Beaux-Arts mansion design and French Baroque garden revival in America. Current conservation priorities include ongoing maintenance of building envelope, mechanical systems, and collections, along with addressing deferred maintenance issues that accumulate despite regular care. The gardens require perpetual labor-intensive maintenance to preserve their formal character. Recent projects have focused on improving accessibility for disabled visitors, updating security and environmental monitoring systems, and addressing masonry conservation needs on garden structures. The Nemours Foundation continues operating the Alfred I. DuPont Hospital for Children in Wilmington as its primary mission, serving children across Delaware and surrounding states. The hospital has expanded significantly since Alfred's death, now operating as a comprehensive pediatric medical center with hundreds of beds and numerous specialized programs. Alfred's original charitable vision of benefiting Delaware children finds fullest expression in the hospital rather than the estate, though the estate serves important cultural and educational functions that indirectly support the Foundation's broader mission. Scholarly research on the estate and the DuPont family continues, producing new historical understanding. Historians, architectural historians, landscape historians, and decorative art scholars study Nemours and related DuPont properties, generating publications, dissertations, and exhibitions that expand knowledge of American Gilded Age culture, industrial wealth, architectural patronage, and landscape design. The estate cooperates with researchers by providing access to archives, buildings, and landscapes, contributing to broader understanding of this historical period. Recent historical work has increasingly examined the labor systems that supported estates like Nemours, documenting servant experiences, wage levels, working conditions, and social hierarchies. Research has identified many individuals who worked at Nemours, from head butler and chief gardener to kitchen maids and stable hands, reconstructing their lives and experiences to the extent surviving records allow. This scholarship provides more complete and nuanced understanding of estate operation, acknowledging that grandeur rested upon extensive, often invisible, labor by working-class employees. Environmental historians have studied the DuPont company's impact on the Brandywine Valley, documenting industrial pollution, landscape alteration, and ecological consequences of explosives manufacturing. The Brandywine Creek, which powered DuPont mills for over a century, experienced significant environmental degradation, including heavy metal contamination, altered hydrology, and habitat destruction. Current cleanup efforts continue addressing this legacy, and historical research helps contextualize present environmental conditions within longer trajectories of industrial development. The estate's gardens attract particular scholarly attention as an important example of French Baroque Revival landscape design in America. The gardens represent the Beaux-Arts movement's influence on American landscape architecture, demonstrating classical design principles, axial planning, and geometric precision. Landscape historians study the garden's design history, construction documentation, and maintenance records, contributing to broader understanding of American garden history and preservation of designed landscapes. Architectural historians continue examining the mansion's design, construction, and relationship to Carrere and Hastings' broader body of work. The firm's archives, held at the Avery Architectural and Fine Arts Library at Columbia University, contain extensive documentation of Nemours' design development, providing rich primary sources for research. Studies have examined how Alfred's specific requirements and personal taste influenced the design, how the architects adapted French classical sources for American contexts, and how Nemours compares to contemporaneous estates by other architects. The estate also attracts interest from scholars studying American wealth, industrial fortunes, and Gilded Age culture. Nemours exemplifies how industrial titans translated commercial success into cultural capital through architectural patronage, art collecting, and landscape creation. The estate represents a physical manifestation of wealth derived from explosives manufacturing, raising questions about relationships between industrial production, violence, and cultural achievement. These scholarly inquiries contribute to ongoing discussions about industrial legacy, wealth inequality, and historical memory. Preservation. Professionals study Nemours as a case study in historic house museum operation, examining governance models, financial sustainability challenges, conservation priorities, and interpretation strategies. The estate's experience offers lessons applicable to similar institutions facing questions about purpose, audience, and resource allocation in changing cultural and economic contexts. Professional conferences and publications frequently feature Nemours as an example illustrating both successes and challenges in historic preservation field. The estate's future remains subject to ongoing institutional decisions by the Nemours Foundation's trustees, who must balance historical and cultural values against financial realities and competing priorities within the Foundation's mission. Recent statements from Foundation leadership have reaffirmed commitment to maintaining the estate while acknowledging the need for creative approaches to ensure long-term sustainability. Potential strategies discussed publicly include seeking conservation easements, exploring partnership management models, expanding revenue-generating programming, and developing endowments specifically dedicated to estate operations. Delaware preservation advocates continue monitoring the estate situation, recognizing Nemours as an irreplaceable cultural resource whose loss would diminish the state's historical landscape. Advocacy organizations have urged the Foundation to maintain the estate and have offered to assist in identifying preservation solutions, partnership opportunities, and funding sources. These conversations reflect broader preservation community concerns about historic house museum sustainability nationwide, as many institutions face similar challenges. The physical condition of the mansion and gardens remains generally good, reflecting ongoing maintenance and periodic conservation campaigns. However, the estate shows inevitable signs of age, with some elements requiring significant restoration investment in coming years. The mansion's mechanical systems, while updated periodically, approach the end of service life and will require eventual replacement. Garden infrastructure including irrigation systems, drainage, and hardscape elements need ongoing renewal. These predictable conservation needs will require substantial funding, likely multiple millions of dollars over the next decade. Climate change presents emerging challenges for historic landscapes like Nemours. Changing precipitation patterns, temperature extremes, and more frequent severe weather events affect plant health, water management, and infrastructure integrity. The estate's management has begun incorporating climate resilience considerations into planning, including species selection for replanting, water management strategies, and infrastructure design. These adaptations attempt to preserve historical character while acknowledging changed environmental conditions. Public interest in Gilded Age estates appears stable, with steady audiences for historic house museums despite competition from numerous entertainment and educational options. Television programs, documentary films, and popular books about this era maintain cultural awareness of historical wealth and architectural heritage. Nemours benefits from general interest in this period, while also facing challenges of distinguishing itself within a crowded cultural landscape. The DuPont name continues carrying recognition value, though increasingly as historical reference rather than contemporary presence. The DuPont Company, after numerous mergers and restructurings, no longer exists as independent entity, having been acquired and divided among other corporations. This corporate evolution makes the estate's historical interpretation more important, preserving institutional memory of industrial enterprises that fundamentally shaped American economic development. Educational programming at Nemours has expanded to address multiple audiences and learning styles, including traditional guided tours, self-guided exploration, hands-on workshops, and specialized programs for school groups. Recent additions include programs exploring period gardening techniques, decorative arts conservation, architectural history, and social history of domestic service. These varied offerings attempt to engage diverse audiences while maintaining scholarly rigor and historical accuracy. The estate's collection includes not only the mansion's decorative arts and furnishings, but also extensive archives documenting Alfred's life, estate construction, and family history. These archival materials, including correspondence, business records, architectural drawings, photographs, and personal papers, provide rich primary sources for research. The Foundation has invested in archival processing and digitization to improve access while preserving fragile original materials. Recent conservation work on archival materials has revealed previously unknown details about estate operation, construction costs, staff employment, and Alfred's personal life. Letters between Alfred and architects document design decisions and modifications during construction. Household accounts record expenditures for everything from fresh flowers to champagne, illuminating daily life at the estate. Photographic documentation captures the estate throughout the 20th century, showing changes in gardens, interiors, and surrounding landscape. The estate occasionally hosts scholarly conferences, workshops, and specialized programs bringing together professionals and researchers interested in relevant topics. These gatherings strengthen the estate's connections to academic and professional communities, while generating new research and interpretation. Proceedings and publications from these events contribute to broader scholarly discourse and raise the estate's profile among specialists. Nemours has also served as filming location for documentary productions, period dramas, and educational videos, generating modest revenue while increasing public awareness. Film and television production presents challenges for historic properties, as lighting equipment, crew presence, and filming requirements can pose risks to collections and building fabric. But carefully managed productions provide valuable exposure and financial return. The estate maintains active presence on social media platforms, sharing historical photographs, garden updates, conservation projects, and educational content. This digital engagement builds community among followers and maintains awareness between visits. Social media analytics indicate global audience interest, with followers from Europe, Asia, and beyond engaging with content about American Gilded Age architecture and DuPont family history. Volunteer programs engage community members in various estate activities, including docent training, garden maintenance, archival processing, and special event support. Volunteers contribute thousands of hours annually, supplementing paid staff and reducing operational costs while building community investment in the estate's success. Many volunteers develop deep expertise in specific aspects of estate history, becoming valuable interpretive resources. Partnerships with local schools bring student groups to the estate for curriculum-aligned educational programs. These programs connect to various academic standards including history, art, science, and literature, making estate visits relevant to formal education. Teacher workshops provide educators with resources and training to maximize educational value of estate visits and extend learning beyond the single-day experience. The estate's seasonal closure during winter months reflects both practical considerations and resource management. Winter weather in Delaware can be harsh, making garden tours unpleasant and potentially damaging to landscape. Heating a 300-room mansion for limited winter visitation would be prohibitively expensive. The closure period allows intensive conservation work, staff training, and facility maintenance without disrupting public access. Holiday programming during November and December before winter closure proves popular, featuring period decorations, special tours, and festive events. These programs generate strong attendance and revenue while interpreting early 20th century holiday traditions. The mansion's grand scale and elegant interiors provide impressive settings for holiday decoration, and the programs successfully blend entertainment appeal with historical content. Looking forward, the estate's long-term preservation depends on continued commitment from the Nemours Foundation, successful engagement with multiple constituencies including visitors, donors, scholars, and preservation advocates, and creative adaptation to changing circumstances while respecting historical integrity. The challenges facing Nemours mirror those affecting historic house museums broadly: financial sustainability, relevance to contemporary audiences, competition for limited resources, and stewardship of irreplaceable cultural heritage. The Nemours Estate represents more than one man's architectural ambition, or family conflict rendered in stone and garden. It embodies a particular historical moment when American industrial wealth reached unprecedented levels and elite families translated economic power into cultural patronage and architectural monuments. The estate documents changing American tastes, European influences on American design, the professionalization of architecture and landscape architecture, and the social structures that sustained Gilded Age luxury. Its survival into the 21st century provides tangible connection to this transformative era, offering opportunities for education, research, and reflection on continuities and changes in American society. Alfred I du Pont, marginalized by family politics but empowered by industrial wealth, created in Nemours both personal refuge and public statement, a palatial assertion of significance that outlasted the personal conflicts that motivated its construction. The estate's transformation from private residence to public museum follows a familiar pattern in American architectural history. as changing economic conditions and cultural values repurpose private monuments for public benefit. Whether future generations will maintain this transformation, or whether Nemours will face the demolition that claimed so many peer estates remains uncertain, dependent on decisions not yet made by individuals not yet identified. What remains certain is that as long as the Nemours estate stands, it will testify to Alfred's determination, the DuPont family's industrial dominance, the Beaux-Arts movement's influence on American architecture, and a historical moment when industrial fortunes built palaces in Delaware valleys, monuments to ambition, wealth, and the inexorable passage of time that transforms all human endeavor into history. Thank you for watching this documentary exploration of the Nemours Estate's true history on the Dark Estate. If you found this thoroughly researched historical content valuable, please subscribe to our channel for more factually accurate investigations into America's historic mansions. Leave a like if you appreciate our commitment to verified historical documentation, rather than speculation or legend. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please suggest which historically significant estate you'd like us to examine next. Your support through subscriptions, likes, and engagement makes this detailed historical research possible, and we're grateful to every viewer who values accurate, carefully documented history over sensationalized fiction. Original characters, 0. Chunks created, 8.